And his powers include, like, pulling me in even from the back of the Blu-ray case. He's sweet, sexy, and just, I'm having an episode right now. Okay. He's
giving you a case of the vapors from beyond, dude.
Oh, Jerry.
What do you know about two certified bankers? PhantasmaCast.
Welcome back to PhantasmaCast, folks. I am Jake.
And I'm Derek.
And this week we're really excited to bring you a double feature of some of our favorite vampire movies.
Some creatures of the night.
We have 1985's Fright Night.
Yeah.
And 1995's Vampire in Brooklyn.
Double yeah.
Starring Eddie Murphy and Angela Bassett. So I think before we get into these vampire films, I need to dish on something a little bit.
Let me hear it.
The Nosferatu 4K Steelbook.
People need to know. People need to know.
Yes. To know. The Nosferatu 4K Steelbook was released on the 18th of this month in the year of our Lord 2025. And I pre-ordered it in January and noticed that the 18th came and went, and I don't have the Nosferatu 4K Steelbook in hand. I'm not going to name the store that did this to me.
Yeah.
But
you know.
But they know who they are. They said it turns out we didn't get enough, so your order is canceled.
Which is not like a prerequisite to pre-ordering. It was just, would you like to pre-order it?
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
The entire idea of pre-ordering is so that they know how much to order so that you're guaranteed one when it eventually comes out. I don't know if you know, retail understands that basic tenet of pre-ordering, but just a reminder, I am looking at you, store that I refuse to name.
Unnamed Store.
Yeah, just very annoying.
I had a similar experience with Unnamed Store.
Same unnamed store?
Same unnamed store. Just with a video game.
Yeah.
But the runaround I got was, it's not here. Okay. Can you tell me when it could be here? No. Be straight with me. Can you ever tell me when it's going to be here?
Is this ever going to happen for me?
No. Okay, bye. Yeah.
Oh, man. And then you went and fucked off and probably bought it from Amazon and no problem, right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But let's just...
I have one. But anyways, I'm not mad at all.
But I'm so over it.
So Derek, lead us in with Fright Night. You covered Fright Night.
Okay. I bought this probably from Unnamed Store. But it was just on the shelf, so I just picked it up and got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's jump into Fright Night. So I got just the regular Blu-ray here. Jake, you have the 4K.
We watched it on the 4K Steelbook. A 4K Steelbook I was actually able to get.
Yeah, because it's like out of print now.
Yeah.
Cool. Love how like one of the most popular vampire movies of all time is just like, it's a precious resource. Like, no, you can't have it anymore. Because I would like to get it because it did look crisp as hell.
It looks so good. These 4K like remasters of these 80s films are fucking gorgeous. The one for Hitcher, Second Sight's Hitcher.
Okay.
Let me tell you, I watched the DVD. I think they skipped Blu-ray, but I watched the DVD, and oh my God, it's such a beautifully shot movie. And so with, the 4K of Fright Night looks fantastic.
It does look really good. I'm not one of those like resolution nerds that's like, well, they took out a lot of the grain, the film grain, so it actually looks worse.
One thing though that like I kind of, and I'm not enough of like a colorist to really understand
I don't even
why
see color.
this decision was made. But it feels like the 4K is like more desaturated than the Blu-ray,
Yeah, so you probably have to like, this is just the age of 4K and like ultra high def TVs and stuff. You really have to like tweak your TV to get whatever is on offer. It's not just out of the box anymore. Because out of the box is still TVs, I should say. Out of the box TV settings try to prioritize like sports or like live events for some reason, other than like home entertainment, like movies and shows, which tend to look pretty flat with out of the box settings.
Yeah.
So then you get people being like, why does everything look so bad nowadays? Like, adjust your TV, unfortunately. Sorry.
Be a better viewer.
Get your nephew. Get your little brother. Get your like born in the tech era child.
Oh no, it went away. Sorry, I was holding back a sneeze for the entire end of that. And I didn't want to sneeze over you, and then it went away.
I thought you were hand waving me to be like, no, fuck that. Fuck that.
Too controversial. Don't talk about the nephews. Don't go there.
Too controversial. Anyways, I don't see color. All right, so let's just jump into Fright Night now proper. So the back of the box is for any of you who have gone your entire lives without seeing this wonderful vampire movie. Meet Jerry Dandridge. He's sweet, sexy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I got a little lightheaded from that. And his powers include like pulling me in even from the back of the Blu-ray case. He's sweet, sexy, and just I'm having an episode right now. Okay, he's
giving you a case of the vapors from beyond, dude.
Oh, Jerry. He's sweet, sexy. I don't know why a case of the vapors just kind of lingers around to be like in my brain to tickle it every time I hear it. Okay. Meet Jerry Dandridge. He's sweet, sexy, and he likes to sleep in late. You might think he's the perfect neighbor, but before inviting Jerry in for a nightcap, there's just one thing you should know. This is so conversational. I forgot this. Jerry prefers his drinks warm, red, and straight from the jugular.
What a description. Shit.
It sounds like you need something warm, red, and straight from the jugular, my friend. It's Fright Night, a horrific howl starring Chris Sarandon as the seductive vampire and William Ragsdale as the frantic teenager struggling to keep Jerry's deadly fangs out of his neck. Only 17-year-old Charlie Brewster, Ragsdale, knows Jerry's blood-curdling secret. When Charlie can't get anybody to believe him, he turns to TV horror host Peter Vincent, Roddy McDowall, who used to be the great vampire killer of the movies. Can these mortals save Charlie and his sweetheart Amy, Amanda Bierce, from the wrathful bloodsucker's toothy embrace? If you love being scared, Fright Night will give you the nightmare of your life. Oh, quite a turn from the very... Just in case you need a nightcap, invite him over for a nightcap to run. That's how it ends. Okay, so that's the back of the box of Fright Night. So I'll kick off my discussion of Fright Night with my experience growing up watching it. Like I probably shouldn't have as a kid, but I'm so glad I did. What I think of when I think of Fright Night back then, I thought I had like the Snapper DVD of it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you like a cardboard one?
Yes.
That has the plastic clip thing?
Yeah. Exactly that.
Yeah.
I definitely had to look up what that was called because I was just like, fold over one. Yeah. But according to Reddit, there actually is not a version of this, so I must be misremembering it.
You Mandela affected yourself.
Yeah. So I must be misremembering with like other ones I had, like Dead Calm. I had a Dead Calm snapper one. Have you ever seen that?
No.
With Nicole Kidman?
No.
Billy Zane.
Ooh.
I know. I thought that would get you.
we love Zane.
Yeah. It's really good. And that director of Dead Calm, Philip Noyce, ended up doing The Bone Collector too.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
A lot.
So I'm
actually.
like, oh, am I a Philip Noyce head? Actually?
Dude, we should do we should look at some Philip Noyce.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, we probably had a few more than that, but like Dead Calm just sticks with me because yeah, there's some stuff that goes on in Dead Calm. If you know, you'd be like, okay, like as a kid, that would scare the crap out of
Yeah.
you. But what I probably really remember Fright Night from is after watching Child's Play first, because that scared the shit out of me. Like like a little living doll, Chucky.
Child's Play was the scariest movie that existed when I was a kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so once I was obsessed with that and like watched it enough times to try to like deaden how scary it was to me, I was like, all right, who did this? Tom Holland.
Who did this to me?
Yeah, who did this to me? Tom Holland. And this is before the new Spider-Man, Tom Holland. So that wasn't even part of the equation.
Yeah. You might remember we did a whole episode about this guy in the past.
We can't escape Toms.
No.
The Toms will find us. And I was like, okay, what else has he done? We also just happened to have Fright Night. And I'm like, holy crap. Yeah, we got to watch this. And I got away with watching it even though there is a little bit of nudity in it. But I think it was like...
There's some boobs.
There's some boobs, but it was like... what did I write? I was like, it was essential to the plot. You know? So they're like... So even though like as a kid, we'd be like, okay, close your eyes over the nudity parts. It was like, hold on. You need to see this.
Yeah.
Like, this is important.
He's a night stalker, a creature of the night. Targets prostitutes. It comes with the territory, you know?
Yeah. And we're of course referring to the scene where he's watching Charlie's watching out his window, and across the way his neighbor is just trying to get his freak on.
Yeah. And you know, speaking of like watching out a window, it's really funny that like Tom Holland did this because that's very much like a kind of nod to the Hitchcock movie,
Rear Window.
Rear Window. I forgot it for a second. And then he goes on to do the sequel to Psycho.
Yeah. So just a Hitchcock kid at heart.
Yeah.
You know. So he and I'm pretty sure he's like just owned up to that. He's like, yeah, it's Rear Window, but with vampires.
Yeah. But like, it's a formula that works. So why fuck with it, right?
Yeah. Just like do that. That's how you do your spin on it. You're like, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just putting a new tread on it. So yeah, I just really loved watching that after Child's Play and being like, oh my God, this is so good. It's so funny. Like Child's Play is kind of funny, you know, but Fright Night is more funny to me. It's definitely like the ideal horror comedy.
Like if we're comparing the two, Child's Play, its whole mission was to scare the ever-living fuck out of children, you know?
Mission accomplished.
And then Fright Night was like the audience was teenagers, right? So it's got to be a little funny. It's got to be a little horny. Like it's so crazy how just everything aligned for that movie to be a successful like 80s horror film.
Yeah. And, you know, stood the test of time.
Yeah.
People are still talking about it. We're talking about it. It gets 4K re-releases that are limited and sold out immediately.
Exactly.
But yeah, as a kid, like you said, like Charlie's a teenager. So I was kind of like a preteen. But essentially I was like, nah, I am a teenager. That is me.
I'm just like Charlie.
Like I bought into his whole plight of like seeing something with his own eyes and nobody believes him. I'm like, why doesn't anyone believe him? Because he has this overactive imagination. Oh, it's just like your little shows that you watch.
He falls asleep watching vampire movies all the time, right? Yeah. And how like novel of a thing where like he can go up to his mom and be like, I saw the neighbor murder a woman. And she's like, oh, Charlie.
So he's single?
Yeah. You know? I hope he's gay.
I have a line about that. It's that is one of my favorite like jokes about it. I guess we could just, we'll pivot into like the comedy of it. It's like, that's still funny now. Yeah. It's not like homophobic. It's just of the time. She's like, oh, have you seen him yet? She says like, oh, no, but I hear he's got a live-in carpenter. With my luck, he's probably gay. That's the whole joke. And yeah, I love that. That's a timeless joke. Because it's not, he's gay, that's bad.
Right.
And that lifestyle is bad.
This man is gorgeous. Too bad he's off the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fright Night is still a pretty 80s horror movie at its core. There's very little technology involved in it outside of, I see a vampire hunter on TV. Okay. And I need to recruit him to help me. But I was kind of curious. I wanted to play a thought experiment to what the equivalent of a today Fright Night would be. Okay. So think about that for a little bit, because my idea was Charlie would go down like a POV, your neighbor is a vampire, TikTok rabbit hole. Okay. Yeah. And then he would either be convinced that his neighbor is a vampire or that he's turning into one. Like that would just be like the algorithm would keep feeding him vampire, you're a vampire, everyone's a vampire things, and it would just drive him insane.
And so the real monster is the algorithm?
Yeah. It's Fright Night, but somehow they shove an A into it to be AI. Yeah. And it's just like, ah! But yeah. So that's my version of it. Do you have like a similar? What are your thoughts on
like a similar like setup to
update the vampire genre to today in a way that Fright Night did in 1985 for vampires? They're not just ancient crusty old guys anymore. Mm-hmm. You know?
Well, I mean, like, I think I guess a theme or an element of Fright Night that, like, if I were like directing this movie, that I would kind of like to lean in on the idea that, like, despite the the obvious truth being right in front of our faces, like, people choose to not believe Charlie. You know?
Oh, the fake news angle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I would kind of go there. Maybe not like so overtly, but like that feeling of helplessness, of just like, you know, like Charlie feels like he's taking crazy pills. Like, why doesn't anyone believe what I'm saying? Like, he could even like take a video of it and then people could be like, well, that's, you know, you doctored that up or something. You know what I mean?
That's a nice chat GPT video or whatever. I have no idea how AI works.
And that's, you know, I think vampires in 2025 could very easily hide amongst, you know, humans, because we're so in this kind of era of our like social experience, we're so inundated with information, true and false, that it's just really hard to determine what's real and what's not, and it kind of just doesn't matter anymore to a lot of people. So that got really deep.
Yeah, no,
that would be my like metaphor that I go with.
That was interesting. I was hoping for something just like that. But back to Fright Night itself, what I love about it now. So that was kind of like my experience as a kid, really, and like my kind of idle musings about what would that look like today. Yeah. But back in the day, it was so well crafted, and that's why it holds up still. Like, the story's very simple, but it's never dull. And like, that's just a really good screenplay by Tom Holland. I think in the making of documentary, which is 2.5 hours long, so I didn't watch all of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very good though. Like the first half hour or so that I dug into it, I'm like, if I just take notes on this, I'm just going to be parroting
yeah.
everyone involved, and that feels like a
we get some
disservice.
Tom Holland in the
Yeah.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah. I love him talking about his movies.
Me too. Even though, again, this is not a dig. He's just got like dentures now, so he's got kind of that
He's
denture,
an old guy. He's an old
talk.
guy now. Yeah.
I think it's charming. Kind of how another Tom Atkins, also has like dentures and stuff in his In Search of Darkness interviews. Still love it.
Yeah, but
Second grandpa.
Yeah, they're just so especially Tom Atkins. He's just so
Like affable,
yeah,
approachable.
Yeah, like I put on Creep Show the other night.
Cool.
And he was talking about, because he was in that movie. He's in the like kind of wraparound segment.
Tom Holland is?
Oh, Tom Atkins.
Oh, yeah. We're confusing our Toms.
And he's like, he's talking about the cockroach segment specifically. And, and he goes, some exotic cockroaches maybe made their way into the wilds of Pennsylvania. And then he goes, don't tell anybody.
This is between me and you, camera. I love it.
Affable, yeah.
That's great.
It's a good word for him.
But he says Tom Holland says, like, when he was writing it, he was very proud of the comedy. He said, I was just rolling on the floor, kicking my legs and laughing after every scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, you should be, because it's great. But
especially like with characters like Evil Ed.
Yeah.
That actor just like elevates that whole role, you know?
Yeah, it could kind of be seen as like a thankless role of like, oh, you're the side guy to just provide some like vampire lore.
Yeah.
And then get turned into a vampire, spoiler. But he does such a good job and has like a lot of fun with it.
It's a standout. And it's so much so that, when he does eventually become a vampire, the very same thing that kind of makes him like weird and lovable makes him so menacing.
Yes.
When he becomes a vampire.
Ooh, yeah.
So slowly.
The master will kill you.
Yeah. And I was like, ooh, I don't want, you know.
Yeah. But so to back up the good screenplay, right? He got cinematographer, I want to say Jan Kaiser or Kisser.
Sounds German, so probably like Jan.
Yeah. That's what I thought too, like Jan de Bon.
Yeah.
The cinematography, I want to shout that out because the 4K was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
They really nailed it here.
You don't realize how polished these movies are when you're watching VHS or DVD or even like Blu-ray in a lot of cases. Like you get the 4K and you're like, oh my God, these guys make better looking movies on fucking a couple $100,000 than like multi-million-dollar movies today. It's crazy.
Yeah. Just have it there when you shoot.
Yeah.
Instead of we'll add it later. We'll fix it in post, you know? But speaking of post-production, or this is probably involved in the actual production, I wrote the visual effects hack, aka the winter kills technique. So like we discussed in our Winter Kills episode, Bill Richard, in his first directorial outing, he recruited like the best of the best. And it shows because he just has like great talent behind him, helping him achieve his vision. And Tom Holland did the same thing with the visual effects. He brought in Richard Edlund, who was at the time of hiring a 4-time Oscar winner for visual effects.
Oh, wow. You got an Oscar winner doing your teen vampire.
Yeah, maybe you'll know these movies. I'll list them off. Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Return of the Jedi. Yeah, all the Star Wars movies. And then he was nominated for Poltergeist and Ghostbusters.
Wow.
Too. So, damn, like a real ace in the hole there. And then to a similar extent, the production design was John DeCur Jr. I'm probably butchering that last name too, but his father was. Him and his father were like a father-son production designer pair.
Okay.
In like the golden age. So I think he was pretty young, but like established still at this time. So he was like, he recruited some like golden age royalty there to do some stellar production design.
The production design is fantastic in this movie. It's like every like character's living situation, like Charlie's room is like the room of an 80s teenager. There's the part where like Dandridge goes and like fucks him up.
Yeah.
And he throws him to the ground, and there's this like weird like pinball like toy machine.
I love that
in the background. And it's like, it's so like dominant in the frame. It has nothing to do with the scene, but it's like, you know, like you almost make up a story. Like Charlie got that, you know, as a Christmas present when he was 13, and then just never got rid of it, you know?
Yeah.
Dandridge's house.
Oh, it's incredible.
It
stained
feels,
glass.
Yeah, it feels gothic. And like very much like the house of a vampire, but in suburbia, you know?
Yeah. It doesn't match at all with Charlie's house.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to suspend disbelief to be like, yeah, sure. Those houses are built right next to each other. But I don't care because it's so cool and just tells a story very well.
And then Peter Vincent's apartment. It is like it tells the story. It's such a great way of like referring to the production design, because like it is a small apartment, right? It's not the apartment of like a rich famous actor, and he's got props from all of his movies all over the place. So it's like it's this guy who like is not successful, but is like very much clinging on to this idea of these characters that he's created, you know, like he has such a fondness. And with Roddy McDowall's like performance too, he like
Stellar.
lovingly looks at like the mirror, you know, that he's like, I use this in my, you wrote down all the titles of the movies, right?
I said I was going to. You caught me in a lie or an unfulfilled promise. Yeah, it was like something of the damned. I was like, I think they said at least 2 of the damned movies. I was like, how many of the dams are there?
I use this in Ghouls of the Dam. You know, like he's so nostalgic, I think, about his career and sad that it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, which I think probably was pulled from real life, because I don't know if you know this, but Roddy McDowall actually got in trouble with the FBI one time.
Really? For what?
I'm not going to tell you. No. He had like tons of copies or like just like original like reels of like golden age movies or like movies that were going to get tossed out by the studio, and he negotiated a deal with someone who worked there to like collect them. So he had like a huge like library of old movies, and the FBI like caught wind of it and was going to be like, yo, you're in trouble for like possession and like intent to sell. He's like, no, I have no intention of selling these.
Yeah.
Like people were going to destroy these. I was holding on to them because it's history.
I'm trying to say, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. And yeah, Roddy McDowall.
Yeah.
So I think he had some input or was like very, what was I going to say? Approving of the design of Peter Vincent's apartment.
Sure.
Probably not like, wow, this is exactly what I think of when I think of Fright Night, but the score is pretty good. Like the synthy theme of Jerry. It's
Dude,
very, it's
it
80s.
puts you in a fuck mood. Like,
Yeah.
for real.
You start reaching. But yeah, that theme when it kicks in when when Charlie's watching Jerry across the way, the don don, and
And he's like undressing the woman, and
yeah, you're like cool. And then later in the movie when he's seducing Amy, at the time when we watched it, we got a kick out of him putting a tape into a player and starting it, and the theme kicks in again, and you were like, is this guy playing his own music? Is he playing his own theme? And then we're like, oh yeah, he's just like Keith Carradine in Nashville
playing I'm Easy in the background.
You want to hear a little song I wrote? Boom, boom. It just starts air guitaring.
It works. If it works, it works.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna question Jerry's methods.
We've kind of been talking around this, but the characters are just great too.
Yeah.
Charlie is the perfect stand-in for the viewer, without being like completely devoid of any personality. He's very tenacious.
Yeah.
But not in like a Jesus kid, shut up or get over it kind of way.
But yeah, I wish I could see William Ragsdale in more stuff. He was really good in Fright Night, and just like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Very believable. Like sold that character pretty well.
Like as a kid, I bought it. As an adult viewing it now, I'm just like, yeah, like I believe you. You're not annoying, and it's so easy to venture into annoying territory, or just like, God, does this guy have any other interests than that?
Right.
Even though the plot necessitates you to be obsessive about it. Mm-hmm. I do like his performance. And one part that actually kind of sticks out as, I never noticed the subtlety that he brings to it was when he's like convinced that Jerry's gonna come kill him that night. So he's in his room like sharpening the steak.
Yeah.
Also, production design in that is amazing.
Yeah.
Too. Just all the candles, all the garlic, all the crosses in there, and yeah, when they come in, they're like, Charlie, is everything all right? And he's like, his eyes are sunken, and he's just got bags under them, and he's just like,
he's coming for me tonight.
I don't know what to do. He's at his wit's end.
Yeah.
Until Amy's like, you know what? I'm gonna go talk to him because I love you. And he's like, okay, yeah,
yeah.
Like finally,
he is like dead afraid that this fucking vampire is gonna come for him, you know?
And then he finally gets some reprieve.
Yeah.
As, oh God, now that the entire weight of it all isn't just on my shoulders.
Yeah.
It's really good. But yeah, Charlie, Amy, Evil Ed, really great. But as we've said before, and we will continue saying, Chris Sarandon.
Yeah.
Jerry Dandridge. Great. Perfect. Wouldn't have it any other way. And Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent. Mm-hmm. Also great. Just the perfect like foil to each other. They're really the true stars. And in this article I found from 2021 on a site called VHS Revival, which is a great name. Just a great name. Wish there was a podcast called that. The article is called "You're So Cool, Brewster: Fright Night and the Postmodern Vampire." The author Edison Smith points to them as well, Sarandon and McDowall, as standouts, and he says Sarandon is, quote, irresistibly dashing and sublimely sadistic.
Oh yeah.
And McDowall is, quote, key to the film's effectiveness, playing with vampire traditions and juxtaposing them with modern attitudes. And that's well put, because that's exactly what he does. But it's not so much in your face, and only when you rewatch it do you realize, yeah, that is probably what in the 80s people thought of as like vampires, just corny, run-of-the-mill bullshit on TV. And that's what his character stood in for. And instead of like making fun of that, there's a little lighthearted, like, remember how these were? It doesn't really make fun of that. It celebrates that and brings him into the fold of the current era to be like, you're needed. Please help.
Right. Like he's obviously a stand-in for the Hammer film Vampire Hunters, right?
Yeah.
Like his name literally is like references Peter Cushing and
Vincent Price.
Vincent Price.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and in the 80s, like you would see these movies on TV a lot, the Hammer films.
Yeah, and they have really, really funny, quirky versions of that in the movie of the Fright Night. It's from a show in the movie called Fright Night, and
he kind of operates an Elvira or
Yes.
kind of fright host kind of thing.
Yeah, and he's like, tonight's viewing will be blah blah blah, which stars me.
Yeah.
in it, and yeah, Roddy McDowall plays that totally different than the Peter Vincent we meet in real life after his show gets canceled because nobody's watching. But let me just circle back to Chris Sarandon real quick. So what he brings to like the updated vampire of the 80s is he's not like a stiff old man like steeped in tradition anymore.
He's not Dracula.
He's adapted.
Yeah.
He's suave. He's snarky. He's funny. He's like, "Oh, Charlie, you didn't think I'd be let in without being invited over? That's pretty silly. But I am now.
Yeah.
And I'll visit anytime I like, Damn. Okay.
Yeah, and that also is like the movie is very self-aware of like the established tropes of the vampire genre too.
Yes.
And it like utilizes them to like fun effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the fun things that maybe only I think is fun, or maybe me and Tom Holland think is funny now, is when Jerry does sneak into Charlie's house at night after he checks in on Charlie's mom. He goes into Charlie's room, and as he's closing the door, he whistles "Strangers in the Night." And if you don't think that's funny, I don't know. Maybe this movie's not for you, because I cackle every time at that.
He's effortlessly kind of doing the vampire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when he is like more aggressive with it, like the intro seduction of Amy at the club.
Yeah.
It's very 80s. It's playing like I think the song is "Good Man in a Bad Time." Mm-hmm. It's pretty 80s. It's a dance song more or less, but they're
eye fucking
the
whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. He appears and he's just zigging and zagging, slithering his way through the crowd, and then just approaches her, says nothing. And they both go out to the dance floor. Yeah, I'm like, so he can do both. He can do say nothing or, "Hey, Charlie, I'm going to be here anytime I feel like it."
Yeah.
He's going to get what he wants. And that's frightening. And Roddy McDowall. So if people don't know him, maybe they haven't seen the original Planet of the Apes movies, because that's probably his biggest thing in like America, at least. He played Cornelius in like 4 of them. I don't think he was brought back for the first sequel, but then he was brought back for the subsequent sequels.
Shit, we gotta get Roddy McDowall back in it.
And then he played like Caesar in the last 2 films, which is supposed to be the son of Cornelius.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But as Peter Vincent, he's, the aging as seen on TV vampire hunter. He perfectly contrasts with Jerry because he's got no confidence, really, no real skill.
Right.
So you expect him to fail. So it's so the tension with Charlie reaching out to him for help is just like, oh, this is your guy? No shot, man.
I mean, that does also speak to like the fact that Charlie is just a teen boy. Like his big solution to the vampire problem is to like go find an actor.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I love when he approaches him outside the studio.
Yeah.
And he's just like, Peter, I'm so glad I got you. And he's like, well, I'm on my way out because my show got canceled.
Yeah.
What do you want, an autograph? Charlie's like, no. And that hurts him. He's like,
Yeah.
then what do you want? I need you to kill a vampire. He's like, get real.
Yeah.
Get real. Yeah. And it's just so dismissive of him. But in like a way that a like theater actor is like, don't bother me with your whimsies. Like, get your hand off my car. The way he just like taps his hand and like points away. He's like, get away.
Well, he immediately clocks the kid as like a crazy, and so he's like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here before this kid stabs me with a wooden stake." You know.
But he initially plays into it. He's like, "Oh yeah, sure, I believe in vampires," because he thinks he's still chasing an autograph or whatever. But then when Charlie's insistent on it, and he's like, "Why won't you help me?" Peter Vincent's throwing his stuff in the trunk. He goes, "I lied." To quote the article again, not only does Vincent not believe in vampires, he's a self-aggrandizing coward devoid of ethics, sighing at the prospect of autographs he was never asked for, and brazenly accepting $500 from a pair of broke teenagers.
Right.
Which is great. That is another like fantastic scene that gets a cackle out of me every time, because that failed. So Amy and Ed have to approach Peter Vincent because they're also kids, and they're like, well, let's give it a second shot.
Let's put on a charade, because like we all know that Charlie's having a fucking episode. So please just like
humor him.
Humor him so we can put it to rest.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, I've got a gig coming up. I'm just booked solid.
We can pay.
Okay, how much?" Love the immediate turn. And he's just, I don't know, he brings such a different energy to it, Roddy McDowall.
Yeah.
And looking back at his career because of this, he was kind of like Hollywood's best kept secret. Everyone loved him. He was just a joy to work with. He has a close relationship with Elizabeth Taylor because of their work together on Cleopatra. And honestly, if I'm being very honest, my first thought when I learned this was, it sounds kind of like certified queen behavior to be friends with Elizabeth Taylor, like lifelong friends.
The queen.
Yeah. I was like, all right. No, on Roddy's part, I was like, oh, go off, queen. Being friends with Elizabeth Taylor. I could just see like just gay men nowadays being like, oh my God, Elizabeth Taylor, Roddy, how could you? I mean, like I'm so jealous, And then it dawned on me, Roddy McDowall was gay. He was closeted. He never came out.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Never married, never in a relationship, just a lifelong closeted gay man. That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Right? So that led me down a rabbit hole. Have I seen this movie like a dozen times or more? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do I know the cadence of most of the lines? Sure. Have I ever picked up on any of the queer aspects of the movie? Maybe. It wasn't until I read this article from Slash Film by BJ Colangelo.
Okay.
The article is called "Year of the Vampire: Fright Night Embraces Queer Vampirism and is So Cool, Brewster." That's just such a great line that I can see why people use that.
Wait, is this a second article where they use that line?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
all right,
it works.
Then we should make the podcast this episode called
You're So Cool, Brewster. Even the 2.5 hour documentary is "You're So Cool, Brewster."
It's the line.
It's the line of the movie, actually. But yeah, reading this article, it dawned on me. It was there the whole time. So think about this.
Okay.
Pop quiz. Who has a girl in bed but a man on his mind? Haven't you heard he's got a live-in carpenter at home?
Yeah, his familiar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter Vincent, vampire hunter? That's Mr. Vampire Hunty to you. And then here comes Sheevil Ed. Better watch out or she's going to give you a hickey. Just one more.
Are these just lines from the article?
Nope. I wrote these myself.
Okay.
Jerry Dandridge is giving Nosferatu realness. Cunt Orlock even. Cunt Orlock is my favorite. So jokes aside, I also discovered that at least 3 of the main cast members are gay.
Okay, so Roddy.
Including Roddy, yeah.
Okay.
The other 2 are Stephen Jeffries, Evil Ed, and Amanda Bierce, Amy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think Amanda, came out in the 90s, like during her Married with Children.
Yes, that's exactly.
Phase.
That's where my brain went. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think that's where I knew her from before seeing this movie. So that was great. That was very brave of her at the time to be like, yeah, gay. What are you gonna do about it? And we're like, cool. So I think they're both currently married to their partners. So that's awesome. I think Roddy McDowall would have loved to have seen that too, and
right.
would have probably embraced coming out later in life if he lived past.
When did he die?
In the 90s. 98, I believe.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he was probably in contact with Amanda still, but just was like, I'm getting on.
Right.
No sense in coming out now. But back to the film. The film itself contains some specific flourishes that are a little queer coded or up for a little gay reading.
Yeah, I was going to ask what are the observations of the queerness?
Yeah. So, this is my lead out to Fright Night. I think we've covered really everything without just
sure.
Going through scene by scene of the movie. It's great. Go watch it. But here's like some of the gay
Here's
stuff.
the gay stuff.
Here's the gay stuff. Okay. And I want to have a little fun with it.
Okay.
With this segment, I'm gonna call "What's Up with That." So it's gonna be both of us. I'm gonna list out some aspects of the film that are pretty gay when you think about it. And after every aspect, we're both going to say, what's up with that?
Okay.
So give me your best, like, what's up with that? How are you going to approach that? Like, is it, what's up with that?
What's up with that?
What's up with that?
That's how I would kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do it at the same time. 3, 2, 1. What's up with that? Perfect. That was the same voice twice. Okay. All right, here we go. Going down the list. Amy is finally ready to have sex with her boyfriend Charlie, but his singular focus is on the man who just moved in next door.
What's up with that?
When Amy storms past Charlie at school one day, his friend Evil Ed says to him, "Did she finally find out what you're really like?" What's up with that? When spying on Jerry getting his freak on next door, instead of being thankful for the free peep show, Charlie focuses on Jerry's nails. What's up with that? Like, damn girl, who did your nails is what Charlie is thinking, and not, ooh, boobs, you know? So when Jerry hides from Charlie before sneaking up on him, he comes out of the closet. What's up with that? With Jerry, while choking Charlie, tells him that he will give him a choice, something he doesn't have, because he has to hide who he really is.
What's up with that?
While Jerry holds Charlie out of his window, Charlie knocks a framed picture of Amy out the window, and it's impaled on the fence below, a.k.a. taking the girl out of the picture. What's up with that? Jerry tells Evil Ed, I know what it's like being different, before asking him to take his hand and turning him into the kind of different that he is.
What's up with that? That's probably the most overt one that I noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I bet people make fun of you for the way you are.
Uh-huh.
I could change that.
Yeah.
That's a tempting offer.
Uh-huh. And also kind of like frightening in its own sense, right? Like an older man cornering a young gay kid in an alley and going like, I understand. And then like seducing him and having his way with him. That's fucked up.
And then do
What's
my
up with
bidding.
that?
Do my bidding too, because I saved you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is up with that? hey, what's up with that? This took a dark turn. But yeah, those are, broadly speaking, my thoughts and experiences and like little things I learned on doing my research for Fright Night for this episode. So You want to lead us into Vampire in Brooklyn?
All right, so on to our next vampire flick. Keep in mind, Vampire in Brooklyn is exactly 10 years removed from Fright Night, right? So we've had some development in the vampire genre a bit. We watched Vampire in Brooklyn on the basic Blu-ray. Unfortunately, this is probably the best that we have available. No special features, so had a very tough time kind of learning things about the making of the movie. But here we go. Eddie Murphy's... Oh, yeah, by the way, I told Derek I could not wait for him to hear the way that this movie is described on the back cover.
And I, even when I bought it to watch it for the podcast, I started reading it, like the first five words, and I was like, no, stop.
Keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Eddie Murphy has got the bite stuff in this movie. Mix of bone-chilling horror and chill-out comedy, directed by Wes Craven. As the vampire Maximilian, the popular star is the most diabolical, dashing, and definitely undead dude in the hood.
Damn, a quadruple or more alliteration. In the hood?
Yeah.
That one almost went right over my head.
To add to the macabre fun, Murphy morphs into two other must-see characters, a paunchy preacher and a fast-talking thug. Angela Bassett plays the cop whose world is rocked by Maximilian's attempts to make her his mate for eternity. And Kadeem Hardison is the vampire's haplessly decaying sidekick. Brooklyn may be home to the undead now that Max is around, but that means it's livelier than ever.
They really hit the alliteration button on that.
What was it? Let's see what it was again. He stars as the most diabolical, dashing, and definitely undead dude in the hood.
Okay, hold on. My flight of fancy for that is to use that phrase as like a warm up when you're going on mic. The definitely devilish dude in the hood.
Undead dude in the hood.
She sells seashells by the definitely undead dude in the hood.
It also is really funny that like the blurb on the back, it just says Eddie Murphy's best ever. Like this was
from a certain point of view. Sure.
Like, I think the general consensus is that this movie was not well liked, and to put Eddie Murphy's best ever on the back of a Blu-ray that came out probably in like the mid 2000s. It's like I'm pretty sure there were better things that came out.
Yeah, I do like that. I think, and if you know better, correct me, but I think this is the first Eddie Murphy and Charlie Murphy joint writing venture that led to cinematic masterpiece, Norbit.
Right. I think so. The story about this movie is that Eddie Murphy had a kind of exclusive picture deal with Paramount.
Okay.
And so this was going to be the last movie to wrap up that deal. I think the other ones were like the Beverly Hills Cop movies.
Wow. Okay.
But he really wanted to move on to The Nutty Professor. So he kind of did this movie just to kind of like move on so he could, get to what he really wanted to do.
Yeah. A contractual obligation.
Yeah, and with what I've read about the movie, that's what people kind of describe his kind of onset attitude about the movie. I don't want to like lean into that because like who's to know how Eddie Murphy feels about the movie or felt about it back then.
Right.
That's not the point, I think. But it was a movie developed by Charlie and Eddie Murphy, and ironically enough, like they kind of wanted it to be a straightforward horror movie. That's how they wrote it, and judging by the plot points that you see, it kind of just seems like a black retelling of the Dracula story. right?
Yeah.
The movie starts off with a ship running aground in Brooklyn, bringing with it a
Terrors.
vampire in its coffin. Yeah. So, that's like the Demeter, and literally in the Dracula story, a like wolf is seen jumping off the ship. And
Okay.
we see that in the movie.
I was just going to ask you, because you are more intimately familiar with the Dracula story. So I was like, oh, is that part of it too?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
literally pulled from the pages of Dracula.
Yeah. So they're not like ignorant of vampire stuff at all.
No.
They did their homework. If it was like a pure contractual obligation, I don't even think we'd have those kind of nods and references.
Exactly. So, and then, other points you have, Kadeem Hardison, he plays the Renfield character, right? He's Maximilian's ghoul,
Yeah.
or like we call it familiar nowadays,
Yeah.
right?
Julius.
And there's a scene in the movie where and you only see it once. This only happens once, which is funny. But he sees a cockroach and
Oh my God.
eats it up,
Yeah.
and that's like the Renfield, like lives,
Yeah, that's when like his face really starts getting hit with the uglies.
Right. And I don't know if that's necessarily a Dracula thing, but it's a this movie thing, and it's hilarious. Like he just starts falling apart. I think that it was originally a movie that aimed to be a retelling of the Dracula story, but making the setting 1990s Brooklyn,
Yeah.
the hood, quote unquote.
Yeah.
When you are one of the hottest stars in Hollywood and you're setting out to make a horror film, you pretty much have your pick of who's gonna like direct your movie, right?
Yeah.
And so they wanted one of the greats. And after seeing Serpent and the Rainbow, they decided they wanted Wes Craven to do the movie.
That's admirable. I would have
Right.
probably done the same thing in the mid-90s.
And-
if I was Eddie Murphy, I too would have picked Wes Craven.
And then Wes Craven, he wanted to break into the studio system. So he was like, the Hollywood's greatest star wants me to do his movie. I will do that. I'll be the
really?
director for hire.
Okay, so he was still like independent at this time. And
Yeah,
this was like his foot in the door.
I think the movies leading up to Vampire in Brooklyn. So we have the one he did directly before that, New Nightmare. So that's New Line Cinema. So I think still a independent, quote unquote, studio.
Okay. Yeah. So like A Nightmare on Elm Street wasn't really like Hollywood, like mainstream Hollywood. It was still kind of like slasher.
Yeah, Paramount
Genre
is
fare.
definitely one of the, the giants of the time, right? So I think when he says studio system, that's really kind of what he meant.
Okay.
It's like
Okay.
a way bigger budget than I think maybe he had been
Probably.
used to.
Yeah.
He'd done like a handful of bangers leading up to this. New Nightmare, People Under the Stairs, Shocker, Serpent and the Rainbow. So Wes Craven was definitely having a moment, and I think when you're a studio head and you're going, wait a minute, so I have Eddie Murphy and Wes Craven getting together, that is a match made in heaven. We're gonna make billions.
Yeah.
They
saw the dollar signs.
And ironically enough, Wes Craven sought out to make a comedy. So you had this weird reversal where Charlie and Eddie Murphy are like, we want to do a horror movie. And Wes Craven's like, I want to do a comedy.
It's like, I'm down for a good chuckle.
Yeah. and that's that, like, you've captured that perfectly, right? Because you're just like, you watch this movie and you're like, Wes Craven directed this movie?
Even after having seen it a couple times now, I'm still like, he directed this, huh?
Yeah.
There are like some moments that I'm sure you'll pull from that are like, yeah, that's our guy just cooking right now. But for the most part, it feels like an Eddie Murphy movie.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
It tickles me funny, like to see Eddie Murphy doing a line like evil's good, ass is good. Get yourself a little piece of evil ass, and then Wes Craven going, that was hilarious. Do that again.
Cut. I'm in stitches.
Yes. Even though, Wes Craven's always described as having like a dark sense of humor, I wish there was a documentary about this so I could see, him on set.
Yeah, I would love to see that. just yeah. Evil is good. What's a necessary evil? If every day is a sunny day, then what's a sunny day? Just seeing Wes go, nice. Yeah, I like that.
The movie is not described as, the match made in heaven as I think people wanted it to be.
Yeah, built it up in their heads before.
Yeah. Marianne Maddalena, who was a longtime collaborator of Wes Craven's, described the film as a strange studio movie, referring to the difficulties with Eddie Murphy. Because, it's an Eddie Murphy joint, right? Like, he wrote it, he developed it, like he's the star, he trumps Wes Craven on every aspect of it, right? So like he's gonna come, if he has a thing he wants to do with this movie, he's gonna do it. And so Wes Craven wanted more comedy in the movie, but Eddie Murphy wanted to play a villain. He wanted to play it straight, which I think that's something like Eddie Murphy likes to do. Because if you look at Coming to America, right? The character, he plays that character straight, like his main character.
Yeah.
So I think he as a performer likes to bounce off and react and play the comedy that way, right? Like being the straight man in the situation. And then when he becomes the side characters, that's when he gets to be ridiculous.
Yeah. Which I like The Preacher. I love The Preacher, actually.
Preacher Pauly.
Preacher Pauly. You're tossing and see, okay, I'm getting in stitches just thinking about it.
I wrote that down. He goes, you tossing, right? Strange feelings and Dawson.
You gotta have an outlet. Yeah. And just he shines in those parts. That is such Eddie Murphy. That is the Eddie Murphy that I know and just get in stitches from. And I just don't think, despite him wanting to be, the scary, like dreadful vampire, I just don't think that's his that's not his presence, really. Mm-hmm. He's not a bad looking guy by any means. He's a good looking guy. Like he can pull off the dashing vampire, but the intimidating vampire, I don't know, not so much.
It still comes off as a little funny, like especially in the scenes when he is kind of chastising Julian. They're in the limo, right? Yeah. And Julian is just talking a mile a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Maximilian finally he uses his eye powers to make the radio explode, and he's just like, "Shut the fuck up!"
Yeah. Or he also says something like, he's like, "Don't you know the quickest way to a woman's heart is food," or something like that. And he's like, "No, it's through the rib cage, but
yeah,
good try," or something. Yeah.
But I think there actually are some genuinely menacing moments that he leans to. It's kind of like a thing he almost gets there,
Almost gets there, yeah.
And I think he's helped along really well by the special effects in this movie. It's Greg Nicotero.
That's cool.
Nicotero and Kurtzman's company, they did the effects for this movie, and it's just especially in the climax of the movie when he becomes sort of the bat version of the vampire. It's really fucking scary
with really angular features, like pronounced, jagged features.
Yeah, the kind of true vampire form that you kind of see like in vampire movies of this time.
Which looks cool, but then I think going back to undercutting it a little bit, he does undercut it a little bit by like, no returns, like no refunds, no returns.
Right. And I think I have a theory about that.
Oh, cool.
And this is where, Wes Craven and Eddie Murphy might have like butted heads a little bit. Not to say it was a bad relationship, but like, creative differences happen. The editor of the film, Patrick Lussier, recalls a story when the head of the studio at Paramount dragged Wes Craven in after seeing some of the dailies and was yelling at him that it needed to be funny. They compared the humor they wanted to Jack Nicholson's famous line from The Shining, which led Craven to respond, "Do you hear yourself? You're saying this needs to be funny? Like The Shining?"
Okay. He's like, okay, film snob.
Yeah. So, I think while Eddie Murphy wanted to do the role straight and be a villain, it's just like the studio head's going to win over Eddie Murphy. Like Eddie Murphy wins over Wes Craven, studio head wins over Eddie Murphy. So if he's getting notes that, okay, you need to make that line funny, or you need to give a funny option of the line, so it's that kind of thing where I feel like studio interference, like I smell it. I smell the money somewhere.
Yeah.
In this.
The chain of command had the ripple effect or the trickle down effect of just being kind of for nobody at the end of the day.
Exactly. Speaking of like the performances in the movie, I actually really think there are a lot of standout performances.
Yeah, me too.
First, like John Witherspoon, who is Ice Cube's dad in Friday. That's
Love
where
him.
I kind of was first introduced to him.
You get you a job.
Just like he, so I read that he, at the beginning of the shoot, he would ad-lib a lot. And that just is natural for the way that he, like his acting style, right? But then like it was a big studio movie, they got to get coverage. So like Wes Craven would be like, that was funny, do it again in this angle, but he would like forget what he would say. So he said as shooting went on, he would stick closer to the script so he wouldn't,
Okay.
But you still get some really funny lines there, like when the ship runs aground and like he's like the night watchman, right? So he's going up and he's just like, ahoy there! Ahoy, motherfucker!
I said, ahoy, motherfucker!
It's so good.
What was? Do you remember his line when he's being interviewed at the crime scene? When they're like, what did this dog?
Oh
look
yeah,
like?
yeah. He's like, you seen Wolfman? To the 25th power, and like, oh my god, and that reminds me of the dog scene.
The dog scene.
So, the crime scene is, is there's people on the other side of the tape trying to look in, and there's a police dog, and Maximilian rolls up, and the police dog notices him and starts like growling at him.
Yeah.
And then Eddie Murphy just goes, jump. And the dog fucking explodes and shoots up in the air. And then you see this long shot of just like a fucking stuffed animal dog just falling.
Trailing down. Like it was shot out of midair with a flare gun and just...
And it's so... Like it's really funny, but it's so odd because you never see anything like that in the movie again. Like,
Yes.
like he shoots a cat, but it's way less funny.
Unfortunately, when he shot the cat, I was not laughing as hard.
Yeah.
No, the cat thing is that's just mean.
Yeah.
At that point.
He's like, that fucking cat had it coming.
Dude, the dog thing gets me every time. Like, because so he takes off He takes flight. He's the rocket dog, you know, but the dog makes no sound. There is no like, oh, or anything. It's just,
Yeah. Lands in the water 100 yards away.
oh God. What a strange movie. But the performances, right?
Yeah.
So John Witherspoon,
Excellent.
pretty good. Ad-libs a little too much, I think. Too much of a good thing. I love him to death still. But yeah, a little too much for me personally.
No, yeah. Another one that I really liked is when, because he's the landlord. He owns the apartment building that Julius and Maximilian like stay in, and he's like, I need a place to stay, Uncle. 'Cause he plays Julius's uncle.
Yeah.
And then he goes 3 times. 3 times right.
Just smells the opportunity. He's
Yeah.
like, something's up, but I'll look the other way.
Yeah.
3 times the rent.
And speaking of smelling, Maximilian throws like a sack of gold down, and he picks it up and he smells the gold. And he's like, God loves you, God loves me. Good night.
Okay, that was good. That's really good.
Yeah. So yeah, John Witherspoon, excellent. Kadeem Hardison, Julius can get a little exhausting, I think, but still really funny. I still really enjoy,
Which is
all of his
purposeful
gags.
because like Maximilian is supposed to get tired of his antics.
Yeah. He's supposed to be annoyed with
But
it.
it goes against the movie a little bit if you as the viewer get a little bit annoyed with him too.
Right. Yeah, it's a little too much comedy where there should be more scary at points. Yeah. Eddie Murphy himself, obviously, and he does as he does. It's kind of like a tenet of like Eddie Murphy movies at this point. He does play 2 characters aside from like the main character, right? So he plays
just heavy makeup and prosthetics.
Oh yeah. He plays Preacher Pauly
Preach Pauly.
in this really, really great sequence. So Angela Bassett's character, she's having a crisis, and she's like, I'm going to go talk to the preacher, you know. And then Maximilian uses some kind of vampire trick to occupy the preacher's body or something like that.
He like definitely
He turns into him.
eats him.
Yeah.
And then he transmogrifies into him, and he's like, and as Maximilian says, "Preach a Pauly, preach Pauly."
Yeah. He like gets into the character. And then it's like this weird kind of like rom-com thing where he's like, I'm gonna like try and figure out what she's thinking so I could like make her fall in love with me better, you know?
Find out her desires, take those away, become her only desire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he becomes the preacher, and she's just like, I've been having trouble sleeping. I've been tossing. You tossing, right? she's like, I've been having these strange feelings and tossing. It's just like, it's such a perfect Eddie Murphy performance, you know?
Yeah.
But then he gets dragged into the church and like starts like about to like start melting, and he's like, he walks in, he's like, God damn! And everyone's
God damn anyone who doesn't want to praise in his name. Let's take this outside. He turns around like, God damn again. His fucking hair's on fire.
So they have a sermon on the lawn, and
it's great. It's a great joke, but it also is, playing on the vampire mythology of a vampire cannot set foot in a church.
Yeah.
So he's like, what if a vampire set foot in a black church? That's funny. That's really funny.
it is. It's so funny. So they have the sermon on the lawn, and there's like, if
He's
a
telling everyone
vampire
to shut up.
Yeah.
They're like, praise be. Quiet down.
So his sermon is just like, It's like it basically is like you can't have night without day, and you can't have day without night, right? So you can't have good.
There's two sides
without evil
to every story.
yeah. So if it's necessary, if evil if evil is necessary, evil is good.
It's good. Preacher, you might be saying, Preacher Pauly, why are you saying necessary? Evil necessary. How are you going to say evil necessary?
Damn. And then he, like, because this is a vampire, I guess he knows what everyone's thinking. So he points out a guy in the audience. He's like, Brother Darren, he was with a $2 hoe last night. You could take a $2 hoe to the lion. Oh God. And the whole time Angela Bassett's just like, what the fuck?
I love the cuts to her. She does a really good job, I think. Angela Bassett is probably the best part consistently throughout.
Yeah.
But her reaction shots of like, yeah, Preacher Pauly, necessary evil. Okay, maybe he's losing the crowd a little bit, but like I get it. Yeah. and then yeah, Brother Darius. That's evil. You tell your woman, oh, I'm gonna go see Mama. You see a $2 hole. She's like, yeah, that is pretty evil, you know. And then, what's his name? Her partner.
we all wouldn't be here without some ass. Right? It's like, ass is good, evil's good. Get yourself a piece of evil ass. Woo! Oh my God, dude.
Okay. That, I feel like that whole sequence
is the funniest part of the movie.
It's the funniest part of the movie. And if they could have just taken that and been like, let's do more of this throughout it. But, you know, it's easy to say in hindsight or whatever. But when her partner Justice, played by Alan Payne, who's pretty good too. I think he's pretty solid as the straight man.
Yeah.
There too.
Straight good guy.
Good guy, yeah. Also pretty straight sexually. Yeah, when he shows up, he's like, oh, I thought I'd find you here at the church. Just, he knows his partner. He knows Rita. Just a good guy. And then Eddie Murphy throws he fucked your friend Nikki. Yeah. And it was, remember Nikki, I think.
Yeah, remember Nikki. She's like, what about Nikki? Yeah.
You seen a $2 hoe, weren't you?
No, speaking of Angela Bassett, like, anything she's in, she elevates. Like, she brings this, like, I think her just like calling card as an actor, she brings intensity, I think, you know?
Yes.
And you know, like, there's this plot, like the A plot, but like I think there's like a more underground plot in this movie, which is it's not.
I know what you're saying. I think I know what you're saying.
It's not as apparent as everything else that's going on, but like Angela Bassett's character, her mother was like committed to an insane asylum, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's that, and then she has something kind of special about her. Like she keeps having these dreams that are putting her off. You know, they're and she's not quite sure how the dreams are affecting her reality. You know, and I think that's another kind of Wes Craven-ism, you know, in the movie.
Yeah, that it's chipping away at her psyche. She's afraid that she's going to become her mother. Yeah. But doesn't know her all that well either, so she's grappling with all that, and she's got to do her job. That, like, you know, the boss, the sergeant or whatever is like, yeah, you're going to be is basically saying, like, you're going to be in the loony bin just like your mom. We have our eyes on you because we know you're going to snap any moment.
So she's got that inner turmoil going on the entire movie. Meanwhile, Maximilian's trying to like use that inner turmoil to like influence her to willingly give herself up to him.
Yeah, you know? To give herself up and offer a way out, salvation. Which
I think, you know, like, as dumb as the movie is, I think that's a really smart and effective like bit of character work, you know?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And unlike, you know, Fright Night, where the objective is to destroy the vampire, get rid of the vampire, it's it takes the perspective of the vampire in a way through Eddie Murphy, because his whole thing is to get her and turn her into a vampire because he knows about her history, that she is like, I think, half vampire.
Like her father was a vampire. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way he's like, I'm on a deadline by like, if I don't do this by like the full moon, the next full moon or something, all is lost. So that's interesting. That is interesting to take that perspective from the vampire and the person who's turning into a vampire, parallel those stories together.
Yeah, and again, she's questioning her reality the whole time. There's a really great scene where Justice, her partner, comes to see her the night after Eddie Murphy, like, officially, I think, like, she does say, like give herself to him, and I think he's like starting to turn her into a vampire. So it's the night after that, or the morning after that.
Yeah, I think after like that. That was a pretty cool sequence of the dance in Julius's apartment. It's like, would you like to feel this way at
You
all
want this
times?
forever. Yeah.
It was really cool. That was a really inspired sequence, I think.
Like the seduction, like it's such a good example of the kind of sexy seducer vampire. I think that you see a lot of different like vampire tropes like kind of thrown into this movie, and they balance out really well. So he does get to be the Dracula vampire, but he also does get to be the like from dusk till dawn scary vampire, you know? But anyways, in that scene, Justice comes to tell her that they've found Nikki's body in a position that she has painted.
Yeah,
you
like
know,
the tableau that she's painted. Yeah.
And you know, she has an emotional reaction to that. They start kissing, and he's like, whoa, like.
You know what you're doing.
You don't want it this way, do you? And she's like, no, I do, you know? Yeah. And then she gets her vampire teeth and she goes to bite him. But then she looks at herself in the mirror across the room, and it's like she sees herself.
Yeah. Before she fades.
Before she starts to fade. And like, that's a perfect kind of trigger for her, right? She doesn't know if it's real. She's seeing herself lose herself. And she screams, you know, and runs out of the room. I thought that was a really good scene.
No, it was cool too. It's consistent with how she was before she was turned. Mm-hmm. Is that struggle to find herself and hold on to that. Yeah. Hold on to her humanity without losing grip of reality. So when it's happening in a like heightened way, yeah, she's gonna behave the same way. That's consistent for her character. It's great.
Yeah. So speaking of like different renditions of vampires, you know, and why we kind of pair these movies together, I think there are a couple of interesting things to note about each movie, right? So in Fright Night, like one thing that I kind of pick up on is it's the 80s, right? So 80s horror movies, they kind of occupy this space where like these kind of things need to happen, right? You need gore, you need sex, you need maybe a little touch of humor,
synth.
Yes, synth, heavy synth.
2 points for synth.
And you need something to put on the VHS cover, you know?
Oh, okay.
And that is very much a departure from, say, the Hammer films, right? Which are they're like kind of cheesy versions of the Gothic still, I think. Like the Hammer films are a stepping stone between like the 30s and 40s kind of Gothic and like more 70s exploitation. But so the 80s kind of takes all that and like dials it up to 11, right? Because they really want to make a sensational kind of movie. But what they do really well, I think, in this movie is like still kind of lean on that romantic side of the vampire.
Yeah, they're like, that's the universal element of it that we're going to pull from. outside of the frame story of just the classic Dracula.
I don't think that you see like a ton of that, like in the vampire film. But like you do definitely see sex, right? Because sex sold quite a bit in the 80s.
Yeah, and yeah, they really don't take that approach with Vampire in Brooklyn. It is a classic romance in that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking back, it's very manipulative. If we think of it as the human perspective of, take away everything she wants and then become what she wants. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But from a vampire operating in the 90s, you wouldn't think twice about it. Yeah, that's what he would do.
Yeah. You're totally right. You're like, when you say this movie is made from the kind of vampire's perspective, he systematically is, manipulating this woman's life and her perception of reality to get her to do what he wants. That's the seduction, quote unquote. You know?
And then, spoilers, but by the end, that's what's his downfall, is he firmly believes that he's going to turn her into the vampire because she is a killer, because she's half vampire.
Yeah.
He's like, I know who you are. And she, takes the stake or whatever the weapon is and, rams it through him. And he's like, I knew you were a killer, So that's cool. That's a cool little throwback to be like, I was right, but in a way that was my downfall.
They're two wildly different movies. They approach vampires, I think, in very different ways, but also in very like similar ways, especially when it comes to like the seduction element. Was there a different way that you kind of saw these two movies kind of pairing together?
No, because I did primarily think of them in terms of like how the 80s would handle vampires, or how it did, and then what's the 90s lens of that, and it just happens to be Eddie Murphy. Which, that's just indicative of the time.
Well, and you look at vampire films of the 90s, right? I think vampire films of the 90s are much more kind of self-aware. Fright Night was very self-aware, but it really didn't have vampirism as a metaphor for anything. And in the 90s, I think you had a lot of vampires as metaphors. Yeah. And I have a list.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go through them.
So Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
The original, right?
Oh, yeah. I always forget that it was a movie first.
Yeah. And then Donald Sutherland.
Oh.
Plays the like Giles character, the Watcher.
Okay.
And then Paul Rubens is in it. Yeah. Cool. And Rutger Hauer. That movie actually is pretty stacked.
Love how your voice went up. You're like, my hitcher.
So, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like it's Joss Whedon. Like the vampires are stand-in for some sort of, teen strife, You have a movie called Innocent Blood. You have Bram Stoker's Dracula. So Francis Ford Coppola's very gothic rendition of that movie. Interview with a Vampire. Okay. So again, going kind of like the more like romantic existential vampire.
Yeah.
You have Larry Fessenden's Habit.
Ooh.
So vampirism as a stand-in for like alcoholism or like addiction.
Okay. Yeah, that's the indie 90s version of that. Okay. Habit's great. Go check out Habit.
Oh yeah. One of Fessenden's best. Dracula Dead and Loving It, right?
Right?
So it's really funny, right? You have Bram Stoker's Dracula, you have Dracula Dead and Loving It, which is essentially a spoof
yeah.
on not necessarily that movie, but the Dracula story. And then you've got Vampire in Brooklyn, which is like a retelling of the Dracula story.
Yeah.
So I think you have a lot of kind of different voices looking back on that Dracula story and going, hey, we have, we're going to do our own kind of takes on it.
Our own spin on it. Yeah. And try to shake the unfortunately like negative connotation that Blackula and blaxploitation brings with it. It's just a movie with a black vampire and a mainly black cast.
Yeah. And then from there, you have From Dusk Till Dawn. So you've got Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez making their kind of ode to like exploitation era vampire films.
Yeah, because it's not played as a vampire film for like the first half or 2/3 of it, maybe, and then the turn.
Yeah, exactly. You've got John Carpenter throwing his hat into the vampire realm with Vampires. Which I think it rocks as a movie. It's bad, but it's good.
I wanted to be like, let's play. What's up with that? With Vampires. 3, 2, 1. What's up with that?
And then, to cap off the decade, you've got Blade.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, wow, that was like 99?
98.
98?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which was definitely heavily helped by having, the Marvel comic source material to boost it, which is still held in high regard still. Everyone's like, yeah, that was the best one of the Blades. And, in our current era of Marvel movies being something completely different than what they were back then, I think they've announced a Blade movie and it's been postponed.
Just keeps getting pushed back.
Yeah, because they're like, we gotta at least match this, and I don't think they will. I think they're having a hard go at it.
Yeah,
at least.
I just think the style of Blade is so singular, it's really hard to that movie, it's so singular that the TV show that they adapted is Wesley Snipes' Blade, but just played by a different actor, but yeah, vampire films of the 90s, I think overall are more self-aware, and I think lean into vampires as a metaphor, I think more so than in the 80s, for sure. I'll lead us out with, I think generally the movie is, when upon release was considered a flop, not very good, critically and financially. Wes Craven and Eddie Murphy thankfully went on to greener pastures. Eddie Murphy went on to The Nutty Professor, which was just a huge movie.
Yeah.
And then right after this, Wes Craven went on to Scream, which...
Hell yeah. Heard of it?
So oddly enough, went back to the independents.
Yeah.
And didn't maybe had too much of an interesting experience in the studio system.
Yeah. Not career killers, just a stumble, perhaps, which is the best you could hope for.
Right. It's a Vampire in Brooklyn is a movie that's considered a lesser movie of both of these, by and large, celebrated artists.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's that bad. I really don't.
It's excessive. But I don't think it's that bad.
I laugh at it a lot. I think it's a really funny movie, and I think that the elements that attempt to be scary, are we really scared by anything these days? Are there really movies that are truly effectively scary films?
It's all personal. It's all personal taste, right?
Yeah.
Because something that could deeply affect you, as soon as you voice your opinion about it on the internet, someone will chime in and be like, that's not scary, you fucking pussy.
Yeah.
I'll show you really scary. And then it's maybe the corniest thing you've ever seen personally.
Uh-huh.
It's personal taste.
Eddie Murphy's take on why the movie was bad?
Oh, can I guess?
Yeah.
From what I may have gathered is the wig.
Yeah, he says, you know what ruined that movie? The wig.
Yes.
I walked out in that long-haired wig and people said, oh, get the fuck out of here. What the hell is this?
So you don't like the wig, you're tossing.
Yeah. So, there it is. I think Eddie Murphy has a good sense of humor about it. It was an experience. I think he said, I don't see any Vampire in Brooklyn fan clubs out there. But here's at least one fan, or two fan, right? Like
I'll throw my hat in the ring.
Yeah. I like it. Go watch it. It's an enjoyable.
Check it out. And if you don't at least like get in riot fits of laughter from Preacher Pauly,
Yeah.
you are a ghoul. You are undead.
Yeah, you've got no soul. And with that, that is our Vampire in Brooklyn and Fright Night episode. Go watch those movies. Have a blast. And we'll see you next time.
See you next week. Not next week. Next time.
You fucked that
I
up.
ruined it.